and take it all in a digestible, doable way. So we today are going to talk more about the challenge, which is hydrating with minerals and getting more into the mineral topic. So this is a game changer for a lot of my clients, especially ones who are dealing with a lot of signs and symptoms of hormone imbalances and blood sugar issues. I'm going to talk about why that is, and then we'll get into some other strategies and tips around not only mineral balance, but also macronutrient balance and eating adequate calories, which I'm a huge fan of. So eating adequate calories, again, is a game changer. It is one piece of the puzzle that we need to put together. And the reason I like to talk about this topic is because I talked about this in previous days, but one of the biggest mistakes women make is just following cookie cutter plans or trying to follow a meal plan, whether that's like a low calorie meal plan or a macro calculated meal plan. They're using a lot of these tools, but they're not applying it to the bigger framework and the bigger picture of doing the right things in the right order and then customizing it for yourself. And so that's why it can feel like you're doing all of the things, but nothing's working. It's because you're not doing the right things and because you have a lot of things that you believe to be true about yourself, your habits, just the way that you go about things that are not actually fact. So we can sift through and filter through all that. And I think having the right information or having the information that you can look through with a different lens and deciding how to apply that for yourself and your goals is going to be really, really important. Okay, so we are going to get right into it. I'm going to share my screen. I'm getting better at this using this new piece of technology, so still a little slow. Just getting better and better each day. Progress, not perfection. That is the goal. Okay, so I'm going to try to present this time. We're going to see if it works okay, and then we'll go from there. So let me make sure you can also see my video. I'm going to pop myself down here. Okay, so day 3 of the 5-day Beat Your Cravings Challenge. We're over halfway. Just as a reminder, you have access to day 1, day 2, day 3, and some kind of like prerequisite work and modules within Practice Better. So this is where like all of the goodness is. If you haven't registered through Practice Better yet, make sure you check your inbox. If you signed up for this challenge, you should have received an email that asks you to actually activate your account. You create your actual password. And you can also message me there too, so you get another layer of support, kind of more one-on-one high touch point if you access Practice Better and message me there. So a few of us have been chatting there and then also in the group chat feed as well. So make sure you do that. You will have access to this throughout the challenge and then for 1 week after the 5 days. So you won't have like challenge or you won't have access to Practice Better indefinitely, but you will have it for the next 5 days out of this challenge. So until Friday and then 1 week following that. So basically for another week and a half. So make sure you access that and you go through the materials. Okay, so today's agenda, day 3, we're talking about minerals. So we're hydrating. We know that drinking water is important, right? Like that's no new information, but the game changer is actually hydrating with minerals and making sure you're getting minerals along with the water that you're consuming. We're going to talk about why minerals make a huge difference and also some signs that you might have mineral imbalances and then how to add them in. So kind of getting a little bit more practical with that. And inside the lesson for today, you have actual links to mineral blends that you can order online and also some other food and beverage sources that are rich in minerals. Then we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, are you eating enough? So if we go back to one of the root causes of cravings and why we tend to overeat or self-sabotage or feel out of control around certain foods, oftentimes it's because we're under eating, and this can look like under eating your calorie needs. This could also look like under eating specific macronutrients. It could also look like under eating in micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals. So that's how it's kind of a nice segue into that topic since we're already talking about minerals today. So we're going to talk about what eating enough looks like and how to kind of check that off or maybe work towards it if you are under eating during certain times of the day or during the week, whether it's intentional or unintentional. We're going to talk about how to adjust that. And then at the end, of course, we will have time for questions. So let's move right along. Okay, So day 3 challenge, we'll get this out there right the way. Hydrate with minerals. So more specifically, we're going to talk about why minerals are important. These are like the spark plugs of our cells. Everybody wants to talk about macronutrients, about protein, carbs, and fats. And yes, those are important for balancing your blood sugar and for regulating your hunger, your cravings, things like that. We talked about that in day 1, especially. But from there, we have to look at minerals. And minerals are important for so many reasons. And they relate very closely to cravings because they're important for blood sugar regulation. They're important for hormone balance. And this includes your sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone. This includes your blood sugar hormones, obviously, which is why it ties back to blood sugar. This also includes your thyroid hormones, which are important for healthy metabolism, and your stress hormones. So cortisol, adrenaline, things like that. And then from there, they're also very important for your stress response and also your stress resilience, especially magnesium, which we're going to talk more about in just a second. And then also they're really important for proper digestion. So if you struggle with chronic digestive issues, this could be a lack of minerals from specific areas. So proper digestion, also you need minerals for enzyme production, stomach acid production to actually help you break down your food properly. So they're often overlooked, but they're essential for so many reasons. And I know this kind of looks like a long list, but just go through this as I'm talking and see how many of these apply to you. So you've done the blood sugar balance quiz, and you'll notice some overlap with these because minerals and blood sugar go hand in hand. But these are some of the major signs of mineral imbalances. So chronic fatigue, you're feeling tired all the time, constantly bloated and or constipated. Usually those two go hand in hand. You should be going to the bathroom every single day, 1 to 2 times a day. And if you're not, then that can lead to other issues. And it can also lead to a lot of bloating and discomfort, no matter what foods you're eating, even if it's like a healthy food. So minerals here can make a big difference. If you feel puffy and inflamed, if you're drinking water, but you're peeing all the time, that's another huge red flag. So with some clients, when we slowly increase our water intake, we really make sure that we pair the minerals with that so that they're not running to the bathroom all the time. If you're waking up to pee too, that's another sign of mineral imbalances. If you feel thirsty, even though you're drinking a lot of water. So I'll have some clients who are drinking like half a gallon or a gallon a day, which honestly is too much water. That's going to dilute your stomach acid and your enzymes and throw off the mineral balance. But if you're still feeling thirsty, even though you're drinking a lot of water, that's also a sign of mineral imbalances. If you have chronic aches and pains, maybe you feel this like from the second you wake up until when you go to bed, or you have a workout and then you have a hard time recovering from that workout. Leg cramps, so especially the ones that wake you up at night. Skin breakouts and rashes, really anything skin related ties back to a lot of things, including gut health, but also mineral imbalances. If you struggle with sleep, so you especially wake up between 2 and 4 a.m. and you have to pee, that's like a double whammy for signs of mineral imbalance. Irregular blood sugar, even though you're eating pretty healthy. So you're focusing on protein, carbs, fats, doing those combos and spacing those meals 3 to 4 hours apart, but you still feel like you're riding that blood sugar roller coaster. And then also any like muscle twitches or spasms and eye twitches too, which also ties closely into thyroid health. So if that's something that you notice, definitely an indicator of mineral imbalances. So I'm curious if you're on here live and you can relate to any of those, or if you're watching the replay, let me know in the comments which one sounds like you, which one you've been struggling with. A couple other I should add in here, this also ties into blood sugar, but we're really connecting the blood sugar minerals, is feeling dizzy. So feeling dizzy and then also headaches. Those are other 2 big red flags that I did not put in this bulleted list because those tie into the irregular blood sugar regardless of diet, but those are also huge red flags. So some of the most important minerals, there are a ton, but the ones that we're focusing on specifically and the ones that I like to start with to making sure they're in the right ratios, and these are the ones that tie closely to blood sugar, is going to be sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. Those are really big ones to focus on, and we can get a lot of these sources through our food, yes, but because our soil is so depleted, and I'll talk about other mineral depleters in just a second, it's important to make sure that we're adding these things back in very intentionally. especially with some of the mineral mixes that I've recommended in the links in Practice Better. So how do minerals get depleted, right? Even if you're eating a pretty nutrient dense diet, and we need to get clear on what nutrient dense look like, because nutrient dense does not mean salads and low calorie foods. Nutrient dense means you're getting vitamins and minerals paired per gram and per calorie with food. So as an example, organ meats, super nutrient dense. You get 2 ounces of organ meats with a ton of vitamins and minerals. That's an example of nutrient dense. Whereas we look at a cup of carrots, like it's not a ton of vitamins and nutrients in that carrot per calorie. So it's going to be a low calorie option, but you're not getting as many vitamins and minerals with them. And you're not getting like the bioavailable vitamin A and things that we want. So that's a topic for another time. But just to compare and define nutrient density, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. But these are some things that deplete our minerals, which when we look at these, it makes sense why we have cravings whenever we're doing certain things. So stress, and this can come from all areas, whether we feel it or not. If our body is undergoing stress, basically day-to-day energy demands with work, exercise, relationships, under-eating, all of those things, lack of sleep, these are stress. And so those are going to deplete minerals. Also certain supplements. So actually, if you take too much of one supplement, it can throw off the mineral balance of another one. For example, supplementing with calcium, not a great idea. Supplementing with a ton of vitamin D, also not a good idea. And so this can definitely throw off your mineral balance as well. Birth control, so the birth control pill or IUD, this depletes minerals, and that's why I recommend if you're on birth control, you actually make sure that you're very, very intentional about replenishing with not only minerals, but also certain vitamins as well. And then poor quality soils. Obviously, this is something that's out of our control. This is just a result of generations of farming and food production and things like that. But that's why, the food that we get today is not quite the same, and it's not as mineral rich as the food that we got maybe like even 20, 30 years ago. And then inflammation. And inflammation can come from inflammation in the gut, so digestive issues. It can also come from just chronic stress in general. It can come from eating inflammatory foods that your body's reacting to. It can come from a lot of different areas. So knowing those are the depleters and seeing how obvious those are into something that we are inundated with on a regular basis, it's important to make sure that we are hydrating properly with the right amount of water, and then, to put it very simply, adding 1 mineral blend, or you can do a mocktail, which there are some mocktail recipes in Practice Better to help replenish those nutrient stores. So for hydration, I recommend starting with half your body weight in ounces. Depending on where you're at right now, you might need to increase to that, or you might even need to decrease down to that. I have, especially my very health conscious women, drinking a ton of water. And honestly, sometimes it's too much, to the point where they're having digestive issues, they're throwing off their mineral balance, and they're experiencing a lot of those signs and symptoms that I just went over earlier. So more water isn't necessarily better, but water paired with minerals is going to help with absorption and hydration. So start with half your body weight in ounces. And I recommend keeping a water bottle with and around you at all times. So if you need to have multiple ones, that works really well. You can have one in your car, you can have one on your desk, have one in the kitchen, keep them filled up and ready to go, so you're not refilling an 8-ounce or 16-ounce glass over and over again. That's going to be a little bit harder. So half of your body weight in ounces. And then from there, adding 1 mineral blend or mineral mocktail a day. And that's at a minimum. You can add more if you want to. So some mineral options. And again, we're keeping it simple in this Facebook Live, but inside Practice Better, you have more options for this. So there are a lot of different powders and blends and things, even drops that you can add to your water that are going to help with getting sodium, magnesium, potassium, all in the right ratio and balance. So Element is my favorite one. If you know me, you know that I talk about it all the time. And there's a link to order that in Practice Better as well. And then if you want something to start with right now, obviously this is a challenge for today. So first prerequisite is get to half your body weight in ounces. And then secondary to that is adding minerals. And if you're like, well, I don't have any mineral blends, then you can just do real sea salt. So hopefully you have a real sea salt and it's not processed. iodized or table or kosher salt, but Redmond's is a great brand. And you'll see if you look at the label too, all of the different trace minerals that are in there. So you can just add a big old pinch to your water. You can also add it to your food regularly. We actually need salt. We need sodium, especially for hormone production and stress. So we're kind of throwing out that outdated myth from whatever the 80s and 90s that like sodium and salt is bad. And on that note, if you do have blood pressure issues, adding in sodium in the right ratios with potassium and magnesium, it can actually help a lot with regulating blood pressure. So a side note, other sources, in addition to drinking regular water, you can drink bone broth, super rich in calcium, especially. You can do coconut water, which has a good blend of all of them actually, and is really rich in potassium. Fresh squeezed juices, so like fresh orange juice, or you could do fresh aloe vera juice, which I really like doing a little bit of aloe vera juice with the element kind of as a blend. So you can play around with that. And then mineral mocktails. So inside Practice Better, again, you'll see mineral mocktail recipes. The salty orange one is definitely my favorite and a great way to start the day, especially if you are kind of in that fight or flight mode throughout the morning and under more stress. You're depleting magnesium and you're depleting vitamin C. It's good to do that salty orange cocktail. So those are some ideas for actually adding those minerals in. Now, how does this actually tie into like bigger picture? So we're kind of zooming in like, okay, let's focus on minerals, which is important and definitely game changing. But now we're kind of zooming out and looking at what I call the nourishing nutrition hierarchy. And so this is kind of a way to separate things and think about them when it comes to customizing your food plan and focusing on what is an actual nourishing plan. So not focusing on dieting or restriction or counting points or cutting out certain foods. It's really building on this hierarchy to find something that is sustainable and will work for you. Not even just now, but like for the rest of your life as well. And because you know how to adjust it, right? So first and foremost is quality food. You do have some food guideline recommendations with the balanced meal template. We're not getting too much into that. And there are nuances to this as well. But then from there, right now, we're talking about so we're going to, in just a second, get into the adequate quantity calories, because that's a game changer. You can do everything with the macronutrients if you want to. You can adjust your protein, carbs, and fats. You can add in all of the micronutrients, but if you're not eating enough calories and getting energy from those calories on a regular basis, you probably will still have certain symptoms of metabolism downregulation or hormone imbalances, or even just simply, cravings, stubborn weight, belly fat, those types of things, digestive issues that we're kind of dealing with on a regular basis. So your body needs adequate calories, which calories are a unit of energy. So we're not thinking of calories as something that are like good or bad, which is why we've completely lost sight of what calories actually are. There's certain foods out there that will use guilt-free on the actual label, and guilt-free basically means that it's low calorie. But when we're just looking at it objectively, like calories are a unit of energy. So more calories we eat, more energy we're giving ourselves. And so we need to have enough calories. And if you've been living in this chronic state of stress by not getting enough calories, your body's going to feel that. So it's not going to feel safe and it's not going to feel nourished. And our body needs to feel safe and nourished in order to reach the goals. So for our body to work with us and for us to achieve the goals that we want to, whether that's fat loss or improving digestion or having normal balanced hormones, we need our body to feel safe and nourished. And so I hope that kind of helps from as a perspective shift on why it's important to eat enough calories. And how this can actually help you with your weight loss goals, with lowering stress in the body, with improving your cravings, improving your digestion. And again, just another example of trying all of the things, but going about it wrong because we're missing this piece of eating what I call within your calorie sweet spot on a regular basis. So again, today, tying this together, we're focusing on we just talked about the minerals, right? So customizing your macros and your micros. And micros include vitamins and minerals. And then we're going to go into actually focusing on getting adequate calories, because this comes before. This is like the prerequisite to customizing macronutrients, which is a tool. and getting those adequate micronutrients in today's challenge. So yesterday and the day before that, I went over the first two biggest mistakes. And so today we're talking about mistake number 3, and that's not eating enough calories consistently. So I want to go back to the discussion around what happens when your body feels safe and nourished. Again, offering a perspective shift, offering kind of a different angle, a way to approach your nutrition and your food intake, is that when your body feels safe and nourished by getting the right amount of calories and nutrient-dense calories, of course, micronutrients and vitamins, minerals, things like that, lots of things can improve. So your mood will improve, your cravings go away, your hunger is more regulated, you're not thinking about food all the time because you don't feel hungry. Any of that stubborn belly fat, if you struggle with that, that will start to go away. Digestion improves, so no more bloating, constipation, food intolerance, all of those things that look out of whack if you've had like a GI map test, those things start to improve just by eating more calories consistently. Recovery from your workouts and from the gym improve, and your hormones will feel more balanced. So less PMS, regular periods, you're ovulating monthly, you're having a healthy period monthly, and also anxiety lessens. So if you feel like you're a very anxious person and you go through your day kind of like in that reactive mode, or you're easily stressed out, then you might just need to be eating more. So these are obviously lots of benefits whenever we eat more, and what it actually looks like to have a safe and nourished body. Side note, this is why I have the Well-Nourished Woman Guide. If you have never downloaded that, I definitely recommend doing it. It's linked in the Facebook group under the description. That's like one of the free downloads that you can get. And that has a full checklist, and then also all the steps to actually achieve this like sort of safe and nourished picture. And yeah, so if you want to dig into that more, definitely download the Well-Nourished Woman Guide. So the other thing I want to say about not eating enough is I get a lot of people not realizing that they're not eating enough. And so I like to point out that it can be intentional and it can also be unintentional. So if it's intentional, you probably know that you have dieted, you have purposely cut calories to 1,500 calories a day. For women, especially menstruating women, anything less than 1,800 calories a day is not enough to support hormones, metabolism, just day-to-day function. And if you're working out on top of that, you probably need more. So if you've been less than that and you've been in this chronic state of calorie deficit, and then of course, maybe at certain points you end up overeating that calorie need. And so that's why it might feel like you're eating a lot, but really you're yo-yoing between chronic undereating and then having episodes of overeating. If you're somebody who is always thinking about trying to eat less and less, so you go through your day trying to think about logging your calories at MyFitnessPal, trying to stick to a very specific 1,500, 1,200 calorie number. And if you've ever followed a calorie restricted diet, obviously you're intentionally under eating. So Noom, Octavia, Weight Watchers, those are my 3 biggest like pet peeves. Do not do those unless you want to completely screw up your metabolism and your relationship with food. So that's some of the intentional pictures of under eating. And then unintentional. So this could be, and I've had clients come to me before where we start implementing the strategies of that like Nourishing Food Foundation pyramid, and we start eating blood sugar balancing breakfasts. We make time for 3 intentional meals, and they realize that they have actually been eating like 1,600 calories a day without really realizing it. And that is why whenever they go out to eat, or, it's a weekend or something, they end up feeling like they want certain foods, or they can't stay away from certain foods, or whatever it is. But unintentional under eating can also look like not eating breakfast or just skipping a meal altogether. So you're skipping lunch. And if you're not making up for those calories later on, you're probably under eating for that day. I see this a lot too with like super busy moms. So they'll take care of everybody else except themselves. They'll feed the kids, they'll feed the dog, but they won't take the time to actually feed and nourish themselves. And so that is one picture of it. Another one is doing what we see, what we think we should be doing from like pictures on Instagram and in, magazines and stuff like that. If we're looking at those portion sizes, those are different than the portion sizes we need. And that also doesn't look at the bigger picture. So like if I'm taking a picture of my food, that doesn't necessarily account for like other things that I'm having along with it. So that's just like one piece of it. So if we're doing what we see other people doing, we don't actually know if that's the right amount of calories for our body. And then the last one is if you're restricting certain macronutrients completely. So if you are completely restricting carbs, maybe you're doing like keto or paleo, which is really low carb, and you don't see it as under eating, but you're under eating in that macronutrient that your body needs. This can also be the case for restricting protein. So if you're vegetarian or vegan, you're not getting adequate protein. If you are maybe restricting fat, so you're still in like that low fat sort of era or phase, then you're not getting the fats. So all of those would be considered under eating. Those are pictures of under eating. And just to kind of elaborate on this too, and paint a picture, if you're eating less than your TDEE, which is your total daily energy expenditure, again, for a lot of, menstruating women in their 20s and 30s, this is like 1,800 calories a day. If you're eating less than 100 grams of protein, so how many of you can confidently say that you're eating at least 100 grams of protein? Probably not a lot. If you're fasting, so you're going all morning, just drinking coffee, and again, taking care of other things, but not feeding yourself. And then you could possibly be eating everything over, or you're eating more in the evening. That still looks like a picture of under eating because you're under eating during that certain time of the day. Clean foods. So if you're really sticking to the low calorie, low fat, like chicken breast, salads, low fat dressings, things like that, this isn't going to be super nutrient dense. You need, again, calories and micronutrients and macronutrients. So I have a lot of clients who come to me eating a lot of healthy foods, but the picture still looks like under eating because they're not getting the micronutrients along with that actual like calorie intake. And it's hard to get a lot of calories whenever you're sticking more to that sort of template. Not eating enough quality carbohydrates. That's another problem that I see. And then yo-yoing. So I still consider this, if you're thinking in your head, like I definitely overeat, but there are periods where you're under eating. So you're going between restriction and then you're overeating. That's still periods of under eating, and that's going to impact your metabolism as well. So these are all the different pictures of under eating. It doesn't just look like chronically like cutting calories. It doesn't have to be super obvious to you. It can kind of come in different shapes and sizes here. And you can under eat and be overweight as well. So keeping that in mind, again, a lot of my clients will come to me with stubborn belly fat, or they feel like they're doing a lot of things already and they're eating pretty healthy, but they still can't lose weight. And we look at their actual calorie intake for that day. 8 times out of 10, they're usually not eating enough consistently. And that's what's getting in their way and preventing their body from feeling safe and nourished and able to lose fat. So that's kind of addressing this thing that I hear a lot, which is like, I don't have a problem with under eating. I usually overeat, or like I can't resist certain foods. So unless you're the person who is literally waking up and eating all day long, and not exercising, not moving, you're a couch potato. So we picture kind of like the standard American, like Biggest Loser. I don't know if you guys remember that show, but like Biggest Loser, like that is your picture of actually being in an energy surplus by overeating and under exercising. And what happens is they simply cut calories and they work out more and they lose weight because their body isn't in that super stressed out deficit state already. So for a lot of women, we actually need to work our way back up. We need to do almost a reverse dieting technique to get their metabolism and their body to a really healthy place. So if you do want to lose weight, they can do it by a slight calorie deficit, nothing super extreme, and they will lose weight as a result. So for some women, depending on your dieting history, you might have to start by slowly eating more and more and more before you're going to be able to actually see progress with that weight loss. And another fear I get is if I eat more, I'll gain weight. And there's a way to go about this, which is what I walk my clients through who are under eating but can't lose weight. Again, there's a little bit more repair to do there with their metabolism, and checking off all those biofeedback markers too. So like your sleep, your hunger, your energy levels, all of those things need to be in check. Your menstrual cycle, your digestion, those should be in a really good place before you try to pursue weight loss. And so if you are, and you can work on both at the same time, but if you're afraid that you're going to gain weight, again, that's probably a sign that you need to work on eating more of the right foods consistently, especially throughout the day. And you can do this, you can start eating more and you can actually lose weight. So it doesn't necessarily, it's not like eat more, gain weight. Those two things do not go hand in hand. There's a way to go about it that is actually like more involving like repairing your metabolism. So when we look at it from a physiological perspective, which, you know, I like to nerd out on a little bit more, what happens when you're not eating enough? And this is something I wish I knew sooner, right? Because eating 1,500 calories and doing an hour of cardio a day worked for a while until your body slows down in all areas, not just with your energy production. So those 1,500 calories that helped you lose weight, your body has downregulated to the point where 1,500 calories is no longer a deficit anymore for your body. So then you'd have to jump down even more. And like, you can only decrease so many calories before you're going to feel completely miserable and get sicker and sicker and have terrible digestion and sleep and all those things. So we want to make sure we're keeping up, like keeping that metabolism going by eating adequate calories, because otherwise everything will start to slow down. So really all of those non-essential functions like digestion, reproduction, extra like energy production, brain function, those things actually start to slow down. And this shows up as constipation and gas and bloating and even some like bacterial overgrowth like SIBO. That can come from not eating enough. Slower metabolism, so your thyroid slows down, you feel tired, you store fat, especially around the midsection. Less production of sex hormones. Again, these things take the back burner. So that's going to show up as irregular periods or PMS or maybe low sex drive. And then you have a lot of blood sugar issues as well, which ties into the cravings topic, obviously, but you're going to have cravings. You're going to feel more tired. You're going to feel more anxious and reactive, and you'll have trouble sleeping because your blood sugar is unable to regulate itself throughout the night. So lots of domino and downstream effects from not eating enough consistently. So what I want you to start thinking about instead, and again, this isn't something that you need to know in and out. Like, you're not meant to do this on your own, which is why you would work with somebody who can walk you through this. And this is what I take a lot of my one-on-one clients through, is finding your calorie sweet spot. So getting to the point where you understand quality, and then from there you look at eating adequate calories. So we're looking at that Nourishing Food Foundation pyramid again. And finding your calorie sweet spot is basically going to be the number of calories that you need to be having as a baseline to support your biofeedback, which we talked about yesterday. So biofeedback being your sleep, your hunger, your recovery from workouts and from the gym, your energy levels, your cravings, your digestion, your sleep, your menstrual cycle. All of these things should be dialed in. And that can happen when we're giving our body the energy that it needs consistently. So that's one piece of it, is finding that actual number for yourself. And then also aiming to eat, like a good place to start. If you're like, I have no idea calorie-wise what to do, just start with committing to 3 solid meals. So if you're inconsistent with your meal timing, working on other things at the top of that pyramid, like supplements or macronutrient balance, things like that, aren't going to be as effective. So we want to make sure that we just have those 3 solid meals spaced 3 to 4 hours apart. And if you're hungry, that's where you have the blood sugar balancing snack. So we really simplify it there. And then another thing that really helps is focusing on what you can add in rather than take away. So instead of like, oh, well, I have to cut out bread or I have to cut out carbs, it's how much protein am I adding in? How many cups of vegetables am I adding in? What carbohydrate sources am I going to focus on? And how much do I need for this meal? And then, of course, how can I get in those variety of healthy fats, not just olive oil? We want to go beyond that. We want to get a variety of healthy fats. So that's just another consideration when you focus on what you're adding in and you look at your meal and think, is this enough calories? Is this going to balance my blood sugar? Does this have vitamins and minerals? And of course, it does not have to be perfect, but this is just what you need to have a good understanding of. And then you can decide like which one of these pieces you want to apply for yourself. So not saying this means it has to be like a picture perfect meal at all. I will throw together random things that I heat up in the microwave or thaw from the freezer, and it's still a good, satisfying meal. But it's always, okay, what do I need to add in to feel satisfied, to balance my blood sugar, to give my body the energy that it needs? So going back to this nourishing nutrition hierarchy, we are talking about the adequate calories category, and we can see why this is so important before we try to figure out like all of the fancy stuff like Should I do intermittent fasting? Or do I need to add in this like specific superfood? Should I drink turmeric tea to lower inflammation? What supplement should I take? Like all these things are fine, but we have to address the bigger pieces down here first. So these are like, this 20% here is going to give you like the majority of results that you're looking for. And we skip over this piece oftentimes because we want like the shiny objects that are that we're seeing from, you know, Instagram and stuff like that. So we want to get adequate calories, and that really, really is foundational. And then of course we have the macros and the minerals, and that's what this challenge is about, is adding in the minerals, making sure you're pairing that with your water intake, and also exploring other options for getting nutrient-dense foods. So I want to talk about this nutrient-dense thing just one more time because I think it's really important. And we look at macronutrients, protein, fat, and carbs, and then we look at the content of those protein, fat, and carbs. That's where we talk about micronutrients, so vitamins and minerals. So we want to get protein that has vitamins and minerals. That's going to come from bioavailable quality animal sources. We want to look at fats that have vitamin A, D, E, K, really good healthy vitamins and minerals. We want to look at carbohydrates, which actually have a ton of minerals in them because this is coming from like fruits and greens and starchy vegetables and tubers and stuff like that. So we can get these carbohydrates along with vitamins and minerals. And this is going to make it easier for your body to break down and to actually use for energy, for like on a cellular level, for your hormones, for your digestion, all of those things. So each one is important, and this is why we want to focus on adding them in and building our plate, going back to day one with that balanced meal template. So we kind of go full circle with balancing blood sugar here, and that being one of the like foundational elements, as we know, to balancing blood sugar, to getting rid of cravings and just feeling like more stable energy wise. So this is also in the balanced plate template. If you need a good reminder of why each one is important, but we need proteins, especially for building muscle, which is going to be important for metabolism, especially for repairing tissues, and especially for neurotransmitter production, which helps with our mood. So I always like to bring that up. If you struggle with anxiety and mood issues, adding in good quality bioavailable sources of protein is a game changer, along with the vitamins and minerals that we get with it. So again, I use organ meats as like an extreme example. That's one of the most nutrient-dense foods that you can find in nature. And then for fats, like we need these for healthy hormone production. We need cholesterol as a building block for sex hormones. Fats also lower inflammation in the body, the good fats, not like the canola oil and vegetable oil, but fats from plants and animals. And this is also our slow burning, steady source of fuel. So like a little bit goes a long way with those fats. And then carbohydrates, especially if you're trying to lose weight and you're struggling with like signs and symptoms of mineral imbalances, blood sugar issues, hormone imbalances, you don't want to go too low carb, and you don't want to go to the extreme with that. You just want to focus on the right types of carbs. That's what day 4 is tomorrow. That's what we're focusing on in day 4. More on carbohydrates. So you'll have a lesson inside Practice Better for that. But it's really important for thyroid hormones. It's really rich in minerals, especially citrus fruits are great, especially tubers. So like any type of potatoes, sweet potatoes, Japanese sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, those are going to be really rich in minerals. And then of course, carbs are our easy source of fuel. So I don't look at them as like a bad or like a dirty source of fuel. They're just quick and easy, which means that lowers stress on our body because it's not having to pull from other resources to try to get energy. We're just giving it to our bodies. And then we can use that energy as well for our day-to-day functions. So, and then what makes these nutrient dense isn't that it's like a salad, or like, I think kale is another one of those common foods that's, marketed as being super nutrient dense, but you'd have to have like 10 cups of kale to get the same amount of nutrients that you would just get in like a meal with like some potatoes and like grass-fed beef. And so we look at it as being like a low calorie option, but low calorie does not equate to nutrient dense. And that would be a lot digestion wise. You're not actually breaking down and absorbing it anyway. So just kind of some food for thought there with nutrient dense sources. So yeah, I think, yeah. Okay. So day 3, that was it for kind of the lesson component of today. So start thinking more about those factors. And again, if you want help walking through this more and you're like, okay, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. That's normal because whenever we're learning new information and we're having to decide what to do with it, that can lead to feelings of overwhelm. But that overwhelm isn't a bad thing. It's just a sign that we're learning something new and we're challenging ourselves. And learning something new and challenging yourself is a prerequisite to actually seeing change. So just keep that in mind. If you're like, there's a lot of information, I'm feeling overwhelmed, what do I do? And that's where obviously we have 5 days together and I can't cover everything. So if you want it to be more specific and targeted and you want all the resources, you want to do the right things in the right order, then we can definitely talk more about what that looks like. So day 3, challenge, hydrate with minerals. And again, you have your lesson in Practice Better with these mineral mocktail recipes. So make sure you check those out. I think that the salty orange is probably my favorite. I mentioned that before. I'm going to just share my screen really quickly as I have been doing each day to show you what you have inside Practice Better. And then you can go through this on your own and make sure you're checking things off. So we know minerals are important now. We know why they're important. And we have some step-by-step to do. So how to start your day with water and then adding in at least one mineral mix. Again, Element is my favorite. So I put a link here to order it. And you can start with a variety pack, but my favorite ones are definitely watermelon, orange, raspberry, and citrus. I don't like the spicy flavors. Like I would avoid those at all costs. And you can mix that with 30 ounces of water first thing in the morning. And you'll notice a difference right away. So also a link to more of my favorite brands. If you've tried Element and you're like, I don't like that one, you can always mix and match it. So I like keeping a couple of these on hand and kind of change it up every once in a while. And then these are some of the mineral mocktail recipes that I mentioned. So those are all really good. So yeah, that is what you have inside Practice Better. And of course, if you have any questions as you're going through that material, you can just post it in the challenge support feed inside Practice Better. So we have a little feed going on there, and you can always post your questions there. Get feedback from me as well. So I'll answer anything there. And then if you're watching the replay of this, just again, let me know if you have any questions. I'll circle back and answer them. And I'm excited for tomorrow. So day 4, we're talking more about carbohydrates. It's a complex topic, so we're just going to scratch the surface with it. I will not be in here live for tomorrow. I know my limits with doing Facebook Lives, and so that's one piece of it. The other piece is Thursday is my one-on-one client day. So I will be back-to-back with actual coaching clients and giving them most of my focus and attention. However, you will still get an email in the morning. You will still get the lesson inside Practice Better. And then you can use tomorrow as an opportunity to go back through day 1, day 2, and day 3 coaching sessions and just catch up on anything that you might have missed. So all of the replays are also available either in the Facebook group or inside Practice Better, linked at the bottom of each lesson. So I've been uploading the replays in there so you can watch them there. Okay, that is all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you stay well hydrated. Think about adding some of those minerals into your water, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.